LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. You know where you're at. This is InspireNation. I am Robert Murray, and we're here with Thomas Queter for another weekly rundown. And we've got a good friend here in the house. We've been talking to him in the back channel and in the studio, Jonathan Howe. Thomas, you had a really busy last couple of weeks. We didn't go live last week. Just too busy, and that was totally fine. Tell us, fill me in and fill everybody else in. What happened the last couple of weeks? Oh, you're muted.
Tom, we're not hearing you right now.
Yeah.
Maybe we go back to the old mic.
And you can leave the room and come back too if you want. We'll be here if you have to.
I'll take it.
It was just broken a minute ago. Anyway, Thomas having technical difficulties.
Test.
Aha.
There we go.
They don't want you to talk, you know?
Yeah, well, no, I was trying a different microphone. Apparently it doesn't work.
Oh.
So last couple of weeks, what is it? March 14th? As you're all aware, in February, I received the nomination to U.S. Senate for the Libertarian Party of New York. So for the last few weeks, we've been hustling. We have to set up a bank account. We have to set up the donation platform. And we have to make plans for petitioning and touring the state. And that's why Jonathan is here. Jonathan, you're also a candidate. What are you running for?
I'm running for New York's 14th Congressional District, and I am proud to say that I endorsed your run, Tom, before you announced it, because when you said I'm running for a statewide race, I just read U.S. Senate somehow into that. And I said I endorsed Thomas Queter for U.S. Senate. So I got to be the first to endorse you before you officially announced. So I'm running New York's 14th Congressional District. Many people know it. AOC is the current occupant of the seat. They changed the district a little bit during redistricting. Not much. It's largely the same. But it's me. There's two Republicans running. There's AOC, and I'm really just hoping to put out that the Libertarian Party is not the party of, this is what I usually get, Rand Paul and the Koch brothers. We're the party of individual liberty. We're the party of peace. We're the party of justice and a clean planet. And I think if we focus on that, if we say the things that have been promised to you by the Democrats here in New York, that we want a Green New Deal to make the planet cleaner. We want criminal justice reform to make us all safer and more just. If you actually do that with a focus on individual liberty, which is exactly what your campaign is about, then that's how we actually get to those things. Like, the people here have made it clear they already want it, and we're very close to getting to it. We just have to focus on how do you get it, individual liberty. And it's just such an honor to be running with people who I respect so much, like you, Larry Sharp, the entire ticket here in New York. Like, you wouldn't think that the best libertarian ticket in the entire country would be in New York, but who's the highest polling candidate for governor right now? Who's a libertarian? It's Larry Sharp. It's Larry Sharp. So, like, this is our moment. If it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen after they lock this all down for 2 years. The issues of liberty are really popular, and I'm really looking forward to running with you, Tom.
That's a valid point. After 2020 and 2021, everybody's pretty well primed for something new. And the Libertarian Party is primed to give them something new. You mentioned Larry Sharp. We're all, of course, running on board with Larry Sharp. That is the point. We need a new governor. We need one that's not going to be the same. And my race allows me to advocate for the things that we all believe in at a federal level. That brings us to what we've been planning. Let's start with Larry Sharp and what we're doing on the 26th of this month. I believe there's a St. Patrick's Day parade in Queens, right, Jonathan?
Finding the mute button. Yes. St. Patrick's Day parade is in Bayside, Queens. Larry Sharp, you, myself, several others have been invited to go march as part of it. Bayside is part of it, like, it's just kind of in my district, but look, all of the state is your district. So we're going to be marching there, all the state's Larry's districts as well. I'm excited. The first time I've ever marched in a parade since I played the sousaphone in high school.
You know, it's funny because another Libertarian U.S. Senate candidate is joining us from Oklahoma. Can you imagine that? Someone from Oklahoma cares enough about New York to come here and march with us. Why? Why do people care what happens in New York when they're not from New York? This is the same thing that I've been telling people since my Senate run, state Senate run. New York, California, Texas, Florida, they're all big electoral vote states. It means they have more power and control over the federal government. That means the change that we make here really matters. No offense to Delaware, but any change made in Delaware is not going to affect the federal government.
I was born in Delaware. You take that back.
I'm not.
So I put him in the gulag? I'm just kidding.
We have the highest population of corporations there.
Congratulations. I've never heard anybody brag about their state's corruption before. So, it matters because this is where we can stop things. This is where we can really seed a liberty movement that takes hold and has effect. I'm sorry, but as good as things are going in Wyoming, it's not going to affect our federal level policy. And I'm sorry, as good as things might be in Delaware with all of their pumpkins and potatoes, that's what I remember from Delaware. Change there is not going to affect the federal level. Why am I talking about the federal level so much? What does that matter? Well, Jonathan and I share a similar initiative regarding cannabis. We both want to see it descheduled at the federal level because once it's no longer on the drug schedule, all of our states, like New York, who just joined in this nice happy party we've got going on amongst many states, they've legalized cannabis in their states. Jonathan, are you aware of what problems this poses for the businesses seeking to partake in a legal business?
There are many. One that has come up. It comes up quite quickly when you're involved in a high cash volume business. Is that you can't use a bank. You have to keep your money. You have to keep your proceeds in cash, and you are now a target for many people who would like to have your cash. We like to complain about banks. Libertarians love to complain about banking, but mainly it's central banking. It's not about the take your money and put it in a safe place type banking. And that's a very important thing to have. Credit cards, being able to run things like that, getting insurance, many of those things. And what's interesting here is that libertarians, we like to kind of portray ourselves as like, oh, no one likes us, no one likes our policies. We have been right for 51 years, and now almost everyone agrees with us. There are very few people who want to cage human beings over cannabis anymore in this country, and that is incredible. What did we do? How did we do it? Maybe we need to take a retrospective. What was it? The Ron Paul campaign? Was it just the Democrats won people over? I don't know, but the libertarians have been saying the same damn thing the entire time. Why is that? And then if you take a step back and we start to make the argument, look, this argument is logically and morally connected to this one and this one and this one, and we're arguing it for the same reason, you start to open people up to libertarianism. So it's another reason, not just the last few years that we've been locked down, but we're gaining momentum on this one very well-known thing that's popular in pop culture, that everyone knows about. And it's something that everyone also associates with the Libertarian Party. We're supposed to be Republicans who smoke weed. I do smoke weed, but I'm not a Republican. But, 1 out of 2 ain't bad.
To that note, I do not mind if Republicans smoke weed. I think a lot of them can benefit from it and just relax a little bit.
More.
There's another issue that we've been just as principled on since our foundation, and that's the GSM community, or gender sex minority. You might know it as the LGBTQ plus or some other acronym. But the Libertarian Party has stood by their individual rights as we stand by everyone's individual rights, no matter what their race or creed or sex or gender. whatever it is, you have individual rights, and that's all we care about. So, there's two things in particular with the Democrats that we've been ahead of them on. We're both in New York, so I'm going to slam the Democrats a little bit. They removed cannabis from their platform federally when Joe Biden ran.
And he was allegedly a public defender at one time. Like, he should be ashamed. And I've been a public defender way longer than him, but he allegedly was
a public defender.
Yeah. I'm a public defender in Bronx County Family Court, where marijuana will still get you in trouble, because even though it's legal, if you're alleged to do it in front of the children, or if you're alleged to have a problem with it, an addiction to it, and you're not in a drug treatment program, it can be held against you to keep your children under your care. It can be held against you to remove your children from your care. It can't be the only thing anymore, but it will be added on.
If we didn't remove children from their families and keep them in institutions that led them to juvenile centers and jail and prison, how would we have more meth addicts? Obviously, that's what our government should be focused on, is producing more methamphetamine addicts.
So I was mentioning earlier,
there
is an issue with methamphetamine here, but I find it interesting how regional a lot of the drug use is, and it really just tells you, like, it's kind of determined by who owns the territory rather than the type of person. These people are generally the same. But when I did an internship in rural Texas during law school, I worked at the B County Regional Public Defender, and every drug arrest that we got was either just a small amount of cannabis and you got locked up for a few days, or it was methamphetamine. That was almost every single case we got. We got almost no violent crime. At no point were any children removed from their parents' care, and we were in 4 different counties. We would literally drive a circuit. But somehow in the Bronx, it is just a factory for all of these things. There is a constant, caseload coming in nonstop. It's an industry here. I'm part of that industry. I have to take, a look at myself when I say that. I make a decent salary, and I'm representing, people who are being harmed by this. And if they weren't being harmed by it, I'd be out of a job. I'd love that. I would really love that. It would give me a great deal of joy. I've gotten a lot of litigation experience. I could go do something else.
You wanna win your race so that you can make your job go away.
And remember, you guys, this is Jonathan Howe. He's running for District 14 in New York. So keep an eye on this guy. Go to his website down here. Give him some love. Check him out. Donate. Buy swag if he's got it for sale. Whatever. So you can tell he rocks. That's all I wanted to say, y'all.
And Jonathan does have my official endorsement. When did I do that, Jonathan? 2 weeks ago?
You did it quite early after you got the nomination yourself. I was honored. And I know it's easy to say that over the internet, but I think that anyone who actually follows you and sees the type of person you are and the type of policies that you push and the type of messages that you spread would feel the way that I honestly feel, which is I was like, oh wow, that this is becoming surreal, like to have people like this endorsing me. So thank you.
Well, Jonathan, you tend to mean what you say. You have the best of intentions from what I've been able to tell, and there's no reason not to endorse you. You're doing the right thing for the right reasons, and you're doing it in the right party. Why wouldn't I? So we've been talking about cannabis here a lot. On the 26th, we have it's a St. Patrick's Day parade, is it not?
The 20th. Well, let me check the count. The 26th is the St. Patrick's Day parade, but then we have another event in April.
Yeah, that's April 30th, correct?
Correct.
Is that true?
Say it again.
Is New York a tyrannical state?
Is New York a tyrannical state? Yeah, in many, many ways it is. Are there individual ways that you can point to it's less tyrannical? Yeah, but usually it leads to just as much dysfunction that it essentially comes out as tyrannical.
What people tend to fail at realizing is that the tyranny we talk about today has less to do with a tyrant or an individual politician, and I'm pretty sure Jonathan's going to back me up here. much more to do with the bureaucracy and the appointed positions because the politicians aren't doing their jobs.
I would agree entirely, but then there's also, and I know you didn't go through this as much as I did, this is more of a city issue. 44% of young black men in the Bronx cannot and could not work in the city because of the vaccine mandate. They cannot get a job. What do we expect to happen when that happens? Now, they've just lifted a lot of the mandates. I went out to eat for the first time in 6 months legally. I snuck in a few places when they would let me in. But I'm vaccinated, but I'm not going to play along with this discriminatory system. How much damage has been done by that? By the fact that we wouldn't allow 40 to 44% of young black men in the Bronx, just as an example, to work for a year or for 6 months? I don't know. I think it's incalculable. I think we'll start calculating it soon. But there's always ripple effects, and other states were not doing that. I talked to Angela Pence from Georgia. She's like, "Oh, you guys locked down?" I was like, "We just got out of lockdown a week ago." Now I know you're not in the city, so you had some lockdown. It wasn't as extreme, but man, what they did here and the fact that the state allowed it and that people were allowed to get away with it, I think that some of our bureaucrats here in the city were criminal. I think they were committing crimes against the New York State Constitution. And I think a lot of the state leaders were committing crimes against the U.S. Constitution.
That's an interesting point, though. Let's think about this for a minute. For everyone's good, they detrimented the lives of 44% of a marginalized group of people in an urban area that are already poor and suffering. Am I wrong?
Well, I would say that the first part is wrong. For everyone's good, but by definition, if you hurt someone, then it's not everyone. And also, I think that some of the studies have shown that the lockdowns and the mandates didn't actually help at all.
Right. So, for the sake of helping, we detrimented 44% of a marginalized community. How is that going to be helping in the long run when we consider the fact that they have bills to keep up with, they have food they need to eat, and they're going to come up on, I'm guessing the rent debt issue is becoming a big thing in the city?
I mean, rent and debt, yeah, like specifically debt over rent?
Yes.
Yes, I've seen it. So I haven't seen statistics on it, but I've seen it coming up more in my own personal experience through my work origin. Definitely.
So all of these negative effects on the poorest of our community, how is that supposed to help? Was it supposed to help? Was it a folly? Were they trying to do something? Well, these are the questions we get met with when we're campaigning, because a lot of people, they see everything that happens and the way it happens, and they can't help but think it's some kind of conspiracy. I personally don't jump to ascribing conspiracy. I'm more on the side of one giant folly.
I would say it's not a narrative. Like, usually a conspiracy has a narrative. Like, we plan to do this to this group, right? I don't think it's a narrative. I think it's a matter of incentive. Once the power is there to do something and you can make money off of it, or you can gain more power out of it, the incentive is there to do more of that thing. And so when we incentivize, or when we created an incentive to cage human beings, essentially, when we created an industry and we created unions around that, we created all of that. You're upstate. There's entire towns that are just built around prisons. It's horrible to think like, oh, the prison will shut down. This town's going to go, to be a ghost town. But I mean, there's a prison there. I mean, and we need to be thinking about that.
Maybe they could get jobs manufacturing the things that prisoners manufacture under slave labor.
That's the other thing. This is something that came up a lot during my time in law school, because that documentary, the 13th or 13, had just come out about the 13th Amendment, and people often forget. Just like there's little parts in a lot of the amendments that people forget about. Like the 5th Amendment allows the government to take your stuff. The 13th Amendment allows the government to enslave you. I mean, it's right in there. You just have to commit a crime. They don't say what a crime is. That's up to people later on to define what the crime is.
I want to put this together, right? 13th Amendment allows them to enslave you if you commit a crime, correct? The government keeps criminalizing people.
Correct.
It keeps outlawing things that people are doing already.
Correct.
Doesn't that sound like a good way to grow your slave labor base?
Correct.
You think maybe they're profiting on prisoners in other ways too?
Oh yeah. Phone call.
Phone calls.
You get a phone call from prison. You
Yeah.
got to pay it's like 90 cents a minute or some stuff like that. And like, I always have to call clients if they're incarcerated and make sure like this is all, and they're all recorded. It even happens to lawyers sometimes when they'll be like, oh, like they just record it anyways, even though they're not supposed to when you're having a call. And like this comes up not irregularly, like more often than you would be comfortable with.
So I want to point out Aaron's comment here. New York is a tyrannical state. A few minutes ago, we were talking about the difference between a tyrant and the tyranny of bureaucracy. And New York is one of the most overblown bureaucratic messes that we have in this country. And that's tyrannical. Too many rules, too many laws, too many things that people already do being criminalized, like cannabis. They tried it with alcohol. They're now, you see this with guns. Every time they find a gun they don't like, they criminalize it, and that creates more criminals overnight because people already own those guns. It's terrible to be creating laws like this that create criminals left and right. We know what happens to people through the prison system and the jail system. We know that doesn't rehabilitate people. We know that largely it just turns them into worse criminals. It makes them more skilled at committing crime. It also makes them care less about committing crime. So another big point that I like to make, particularly with gun legislation, if you've decided to commit a murder, is the fact that a particular gun is illegal going to stop you from attaining and using that gun to commit murder?
I think the statistics bear out that the answer is no, because most, at least especially in New York, most gun crime is done by unregistered, quote unquote, illegal firearms. Meanwhile,
let's look at the if you're not allowed to own a gun because you were a felon or you committed a crime, right? This is my right hand. My right hand is a felon. This is my left hand. My left hand is a law-abiding citizen. This is a gun in my hand. It's actually a pen, but we're going to pretend.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Oh, look, that's illegal. Oh, wait, it's illegal. Oh, shit, it's illegal again. I mean, how do you know? How can you tell? What's going to stop them?
I think that'd be a lot more brutal with a pen.
I was going to say, Tom, don't give them ideas because they're talking about fingerprint guns where you have to have your fingerprint on it and no one else can use it without their fingerprint.
They already do.
And essentially what they're saying is that you have the right to self-defense until your batteries run out.
Well, my batteries run out every day. However, that still wouldn't stop them because I personally could go to a hardware store and build a gun in about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think some people feel like they're criminalized, you know, and like I think like as growing up, when you grow up and you come to get an altercation with a cop or you do something, and that first like couple of times you have an altercation with authority, the cop has a decision to make right there. Am I gonna like give this kid one chance, bitch him out all the way home, get him in his car, and like leave him on a good note where he will actually turn around and be good, or stick him in the system where take his car, maybe he was drinking, now he's got a DUI, now he's got kids and he can't take care of him, he's just a suck on the system and can never get out. I think that there should be a little bit more responsibility on the youngins. Treat the youngins better.
I saw a question come up that said, why do criminals do what they do? And it kind of ties into what you just said. And this is not a why, it's not a justification or anything like that. But think about what you just said. For the first 18 years of my life, I grew up in a small town in Western Massachusetts. Not only did I never have a negative interaction with a cop, I never had an interaction with a cop outside of DARE class, where they told me, do a report on why marijuana should be illegal. I looked it up, I found Ron Paul, and now I'm a libertarian. That was the only time I ever interacted with a cop.
Wow, they did that for you in DARE?
Yeah. And
You know
then
what
when
they did for me in there? 4th grade. State trooper comes by. He's got this suitcase full of paraphernalia and various hard drugs. He literally teaches us what crack looks like, how to identify if it's quality crack, and how to smoke it. And then he leaves. Everybody I went to school with remembers that.
I don't think that was. I don't know if that was a cop, Tom. That may have just been some guy coming in with a suitcase.
Well, he was wearing a state trooper uniform, and the school said that he was a state trooper with the DARE program.
Well,
That's
that's
all we
incredible.
have here with state troopers.
But my point is, with if you grow up in the Bronx, especially very certain areas of the Bronx, certain zip codes, you are going to have an interaction with the police from the day you turn, the day you can walk. Like, it's going to happen. You're going to see interactions with the police. You're going to hear interactions with the police. You're going to have neighbors.
I'll never have to interact with the police.
And what you are going to have no fear of and no respect for is the police. I mean, you might have fear, but not fear of like their judgment. You're going to have fear of their weapons. You're going to fear and you're going to hate them, and it makes total
Exactly.
sense.
You're going to be scared of them. Yeah.
And again, that doesn't justify hurting other people, but most of the criminals we're talking about are people who are doing possession type crimes, and they tend to escalate from there. It's like, well, why do you need a gun to sell weed? Well, because it is illegal. My brother owns a brewery. My brother runs a brewery. He's done this for years. He has never owned a gun. No brewer, I don't want to say no, but very, very few brewers are going to have a gun in their brewery to protect themselves. Because it's legal. They can get insurance. They can get, an alarm system. They can have, the cops come when someone's breaking in. A drug dealer can't do that because it's illegal. And so you get your own protection. And then this spirals. Now the cops need more guns because the drug dealers have guns. Now the drug dealers get bigger guns. The cops get bigger guns. Now we have a tank. The cops can run over the drug den. They can arrest the dead bodies, and they can file the paperwork afterwards. But at least they get to go home. And we also have to think that police officers are human beings too, and they want to go home. They're being told we have to arrest these people for these crimes, and they're all dangerous and they're all armed. So they're going to shoot first and ask questions later because they're human. We can't expect them to be superheroes. We need to stop making them do this crazy job that only a superhero could ever do. Because we are the war on drugs.
Do you mean to tell me that if you arm a man or woman and you send them into a dangerous situation, they may use those arms to defend their lives, and maybe they'll be nervous and too quick to pull the trigger like anybody else?
Yeah, and I don't want anyone to take this, and take a specific example and be like, oh, then you're okay with this police shooting. Usually, no, I'm not. But these shootings happen because both sides know that both sides are heavily armed. And both sides know that both sides are heavily armed because it's illegal, high profit, and it's been going on for decades. It's literally for the entire existence of the Libertarian Party. This war has been escalating. And there's no way to end the war than either admitting defeat or making a truce. There's no truce here because drugs are winning. We have to admit defeat. We have to do it graciously.
So I would argue that anything that's illegal is winning. Drugs, guns, prostitution, it's all there. It's never been stopped. And there's no way to make it better without stopping the harm that we cause in trying to stop it. One good example, a few years ago, a gentleman in Oneida County, a little north of me, defended his property with a weapon that was his late father's, and he had failed to do the proper registration. Think about this. If your father dies, is the registration of his hunting rifle going to be the first thing you think about?
I don't know anything about trusts and estates and wills and deeds when it comes to guns. They don't teach us that in law school, weirdly.
So he defended his property, people breaking into his home, not even for the first time, same people, repeat offense in the same place. He shot them. He was within his rights, except that gun was not registered to him, and he did 10 months in jail.
You know who that kind of sounds like? Someone who I've actually met weirdly in my weird journey of life, Bernie Getz. I don't know if he was justified in that shooting or not. I wasn't on the jury and I didn't see the evidence, but I've met him. And he did get convicted of a felony. because he had a gun that was registered out of state. He had transferred it into the state, and it ended up being time served. But very, very similar circumstances, although also very, very different. At the subway versus your father's homestead. But yeah, it's interesting that they will always find a way to get you, whether it's justified or unjustified. Although I guess Rittenhouse is now the exception.
Think of it this way: what if your nearest means of self-defense was an illegal gun that came in the hands of one of those perpetrators, and you got it away from them and shot them? You then shot an illegal gun.
Take that up.
Legally, is that different from what this gentleman did using his father's rifle?
It's funny because as I was taking my sip of beer and you started to talk, I was like, I'm really smart. I know what I'm going to say. I'm going to make a great analogy. And then you said it. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to say when Tom asked me that question.
That's what you've been doing to me, Jonathan.
That's the question that I was going to ask. Yeah, that's the perfect analogy, Tom. That it proves how dumb it is. There's no such thing as an illegal tool in my mind. If you're using that tool in a valid way that doesn't initiate harm against others, because obviously shooting them harms them. But if they're initiating the harm and it's a threat, then unfortunately that's what you're entitled to do and you should do.
So the discussion of cannabis led us to the discussion of guns, which it always does, because now if you're a legal patient, you can't own a gun. If you're a legal cannabis patient, you can't own a gun. And now they're opening it up here in New York so that anybody can buy recreationally. What are the chances? You think maybe they're going to track that? They have the ability to track who buys beer at a gas station. Do you think maybe they're going to track who buys recreational marijuana?
My phone tracks what type of cat litter I buy, apparently, because my ads change as we change the cat litter, and I'm not even the one buying it. My wife is. So yeah, I'm sure all of this is tracked. All of it. It has to be. And people are like, oh, you're paranoid, but we always get this information way after the fact. We don't learn about them until way after the fact. And if they can do it, and there's an incentive to do it, why would they not do it?
I appreciate everybody commenting in the comments there. Appreciate you guys. Chad, where are you guys coming from? Tell me in the comments where you guys are tuning in from.
I believe Aaron said he was from Missouri.
Yeah, it says right here, Missouri. We don't have a social, conceal and carry law. Yeah, so we can conceal and we can open carry, but we have to have a permit for the conceal. I think that's how it goes.
And where are you?
In Alaska.
Now,
at the beginning of COVID, I looked into getting a pistol license here in New York, and I looked at the projected time frame, and this was before everything shut down. It was like 18 months, $900, and if you mess up one thing, you have to pay the $900 again, and wait another 18 months. And I was like, well, this isn't going to last 18 months, so I'll whatever. I don't have $900 right now. And of course, it's lasted 2 years, and now I actually do have $900. Not much more than that, but that's about how much I've raised for my campaign. But no, seriously though, it would have taken forever. Whereas I believe, outside of the city, there's somewhat sane gun laws. Like you can buy a rifle by like going into a store and showing your social security number. In New York, there's a separate permit for that. So there's a different one for permit and for pistol versus rifle. And honestly, even as a lawyer, I got so glassy-eyed reading through the regulations and what I would have to provide and all the paperwork. I was like, I'll just move out of here when these lift, in like 6 months, and they didn't lift, and then I kind of got devoted to staying here because I got married and got cats and started running for office. So here I am.
So we're going to wrap this up because we usually do about 30 minutes. Jonathan, on April 30th, I'm coming down to your neck of the woods, and we're going to do what?
So we had a few plans, but I think the best one we have right now is that in protest of all the damage that's been done by prohibition, specifically cannabis prohibition, and all the damage that's been done by essentially the torture center on Rikers Island, that we're going to go to the bridge to Rikers Island, which is not far from where I live, and we're going to plant some cannabis plants. And we're going to, maybe we'll do them in buckets, maybe we'll plant them in the dirt. And, if people are driving by, cannabis is legal. So long as they're 21, we'll hand them out. We'll pass it around. Maybe some people who are going into work won't want to take it because that would be a felony. But yeah, that's the plan. They've done enough damage, and we're going to go there and be literal flower children.
April 30th, the bridge to Rikers Island. Come get carded by your congressman for cannabis.
Exactly.
Oh, yes. Oh, your public defender.
Our public defender. The entire bicameral legislature will be there. It will be the entire bicameral federal legislature. It'll be me, it'll be and Tom. And we'll be doing what we do.
I want to shout out to Matt Lacey.
So I'll be upper house, you'll be lower house. You got Larry for governor. Got Bill Smith for comptroller.
Sean Hayes.
There's Sean Hayes. He's attorney general. And then if he's back in town, Andrew Hollister. And that's the whole slate for the 26th of the march for the St. Patrick's Day parade. So again, on the 26th, come to Queens, New York for the parade. You get to meet us all. On the 30th, that's the 26th of March. On the 30th of April, come to the bridge for to Rikers Island. And, bring your ID. If you're over 21, we'll give you some free cannabis, and you can watch us plant some cannabis.
And I was a bartender before, so I do know how to check an ID. Just like my opponent. So on paper, we're equal, but then I also became a public defender.
You hear that? Don't bring a fake ID. He knows.
I can tell. And Robert, what were you saying? You were talking about Matt.
Oh, yeah. So I just wanted to shout out to Matt Lacey. He's such a loyal and faithful friend and connection, and he's always giving me advice on Clubhouse, and he's always showing up on the live streams and picking a comment in. He goes, so that's really important. Everybody likes coming in here. Please share and like and put a comment in. I usually throw every comment up. I scan it real quick, make sure it's nothing like "Die Thomas," or something like that. But
send me your Bitcoin.
So one last announcement out of the Queeter campaign. We are looking at having to start a new Facebook page. Facebook doesn't seem to want to let us change our name. So we will be starting a new Facebook page. Keep an eye out for it. Should come this week. And, migrate on over, give that one a like. We're going to leave the state Senate one up just because.
As a relic. And my last shout out, go to my website, go to Tom's website. It's either thomasqueeter.us or how2022.com. Go to them, figure out where the volunteer form is, usually right there. I know mine's up there. Just fill out name, email address, phone number. We need help petitioning. If you can't donate, we need help petitioning. If you're in New York, we need help petitioning. Like we just need you to go out for 1 day, 2 days, get 20 signatures. It's really not that hard. You get your family, you get your neighbor. You have no idea how much that helps. The other thing, I think it's Assembly Bill 8386A. It may be 8683A. I forgot to type it down. But it's the one about ballot access. If you live in New York, call your assembly person, call your state senator, say that you want them to vote yes on the ballot access law. It's either 8386 or 8683. It would make it much easier by a third for both Thomas and me to get on the ballot. I would not need to get 3,500 signatures. I need about 1,200. And Tom would not need 45,000, right? You would need 15,000. So if you want to see us on the ballot, and it'd be fun. Call your assemblyman or call your assembly person, and B, please go to our website, sign up to help petition. If we're not on the ballot, none of this matters.
About the website, it should be clickable, the link in the comments section here. And Thomas is thomasqueeter.us, and that's also in the post.
All right, guys. It was good talking to you.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I'll be seeing you soon. And
thank you for coming on, Jonathan.
One more shout out. If you're in Suffolk County, the 23rd is the Suffolk County Libertarian Convention. And my campaign manager, Artie, has been working his butt off to organize that. And Tom, you'll be there, right?
I will be there.
Tom will be there. I'll be there. Larry will be there. I'm not in Suffolk County at all, so I am just there as the hype man. So I'm gonna hype you up. I'm gonna hype Larry up, and that's it. I'm very excited for that.
Awesome. Cool, Jonathan. I was gonna ask you, were you on Angelo's show?
Yeah. So okay, Angelo Veltri, you were the first person to have me on to interview me, and now I'm doing a weekly show with him. It's him. It's Angela Pence, who's running for Georgia 14, and me, who's running against AOC in New York 14. So it's the person running against Marjorie Taylor Greene and the person running against AOC, both are libertarians, doing a show together with Angelo. So every Sunday, usually at 7, if you go to Angelo for Liberty or the Liberty Hour podcast, you'll find it. We're doing it weekly, and we're talking about the convergence between running against AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene, which I think is a really interesting angle to take.
Cool. So shout out to Angelo.
He's the best.
Guys, you have a good night.
You too.
Good night, guys. 3, 2, 1. We're out of here. See you in the